Most people are trying to find ways to use robotics, generally to replace physical human labor. What makes these robots different is that they're designed for human interaction, not for physical tasks.
Today I welcome to our series Andrew Kiguel, the chairman and CEO of Realbotix Corp.
You can take our robot as a date to a wedding or out for dinner to a restaurant. Loneliness causes cancer, diabetes, strokes. It's a big problem for societies.
There's a vision that is, in one end, part of the world adopts a positive relationship with robots and AI. Another part of the world is against that and decides to create the war against robots.
I'm not one of those people that thinks that AI is going to take over the planet. We just recently sold the robot to a family that has an autistic son and interacts better with AI and robotics than with humans. When you buy a robot, I want you to receive an email. I want you to get almost a birth certificate for your robot. How do we take this phenomenal technology that we have and translate it into something mainstream? We're pioneering something new here. There's not many companies in the world that are selling full-size humanoid AI-powered robots.
More than half of you who watch or listen regularly haven't subscribed yet. So before we dive into today's conversation, I have a small ask. If you find value in what we're creating here, the ideas, the insights, the voices shaping the future of AI, blockchain, smart cities, and society, the best way to support us is simple and completely free. Subscribe to the channel. And here's our promise to you. We'll keep raising the bar. Every episode will bring you deeper, richer conversations with the leaders and innovators building tomorrow. Ideas that inform, inspire, and challenge the way we all think. Your support means everything. Thank you for being part of this global journey.
Hello and welcome to the Guarda YouTube podcast show, once again powered by citiesabc.com, businessabc.net, and wisdomia.ai. We keep bringing to this series, I believe, some of the people that are changing the way we do business and technology, and as well, people that believe. Believing is one of the most important things when it comes to anything related with the business and actually daily life. Being an entrepreneur is a fantastic adventure, but not everyone was built to be an entrepreneur. So in this series, we've been bringing personalities from all over the world that actually experience and bringing their experience to our audience, which I'm excited to bring and as well to share and to learn as much as I ask questions with them. Today, I welcome to our series Andrew Kiguel, a Canadian entrepreneur and executive with over 2 decades of experience in investment banking, blockchain, AI, and robotics. Andrew is the chairman and CEO of Realbotix Corp, a company that develops AI-integrated human-like robots for companionship and social interaction. The company focuses on robotics and AI to enhance human experiences. Realbotix is publicly traded on TSX Venture Exchange, XBOT, Frankfurt Stock Exchange, and OTCQB. Prior to this adventure, Andrew co-founded and provided leadership to multiple Web3 and blockchain-based companies. He was the CEO, co-founder, and director of At8 Mining Corp, a publicly traded Bitcoin mining and blockchain infrastructure company. Under his leadership, At8 Mining generated $143 million in revenue and in 2 years raised over $108 million in equity. And he launched an IPO valuation of $450 million. Andrew also founded Tokens.com, a company focused on blockchain-based digital asset investments. Previously as well, he was the executive chair of Metaverse Group, which specializes in virtual and real estate investments. And he is as well a serial entrepreneur with other companies he actually created, such as Alk Labs, a company operating in blockchain gaming and Web3 sectors. Before entering the domains of technology and blockchain industry and AI robotics, Andrew spent 18 years as managing director of investment banking at GMP Securities, now Stifel Canada. He was the lead banker on over 30 transactions exceeding $4 billion and involved in a lot of different transactions. He co-headed the blockchain group, led the real estate, and the list goes. To finalize, Andrew holds an MBA in finance from the University of Toronto and an RSBA from the York University. So fantastic experience and welcome to our series, Andrew.
Great. Thank you for having me.
So, Andrew, you have a fantastic epicenter of all the most cool technologies in the world, coming from investment banking to blockchain, crypto, and now robotics and AI. So, a bit of where did all this started? And I always like to go to childhood. I know that is a bit on the back of everything, but I would like to hear a bit of your story and sharing whatever you want to share, of course, public with our audience.
Sure. So I was actually born in Santiago, Chile, in South America. And my family immigrated to Canada in the late 70s very quickly and had to adapt, learn the English language, adapt to a new culture, and adapt to parents who did not want to adapt to a new culture, which causes for a lot of friction. And I think for me growing up, my parents always said that as a potential career, I would be a very bad employee because I'm not very good at taking instruction from people. I'm not a good listener. I'm not very cooperative either. So, eventually that evolved into me having to find a profession that allowed me to, in a sense, operate on my own, off my own instincts, while under the guise of a broader company. So investment banking was a good fit for me. In a sense, when you're an investment banker, you're building relationships, you're building a toolbox of knowledge. It emphasizes knowledge of math and finance. I've always liked math because math doesn't lie. It's there for you to see. And I was able to sort of work with some really talented people. One of the great gifts of being an investment banker was getting to interact and meet with some of the most successful entrepreneurs in Canada and some from the US that I was able to learn from and interact with.
Oh, that's fantastic. So before we go more, because of course I love culture and as well multi-pods, and I'm as well a multi-pod myself and my family. So from Chile to Canada, and as well from a non-conventional education to investment banking, and then for the startup world. So what would be the things that mark you more? Because I think on these things we get a bit of a scars of our growth, but as well, of course, there's a lot of, I would say, an operating system. And I think the best entrepreneurs are the ones that can actually hack their own operating system, getting the best out of it, but adapting to new operating systems, if you use the terminology of software. What was the kind of, I would say, the areas or the moments that made, I think, that strength that you have from passing from culture to culture, keep your own personality in the middle of all these differences?
So one value that was always instilled in me by my parents was delayed gratification, and they embodied that. And this might be the same with your background, but when your parents leave a country and go to another country with nothing, essentially, you're making the ultimate sacrifice. It's the ultimate form of delayed gratification to say, I'm going to leave behind my friends, my community, with the hope of something greater down the road. There's a very large immediate sacrifice. And that was not lost on me. And I don't know, did you experience something similar with your journey?
Completely. I have actually United Nations at home and you're my treasure. Completely. And I love what you said, because you have to leave one part and adapt to others. And as well, you have to hustle. You have to get out of your comfort zone completely.
Absolutely. The positive things happen outside the comfort zone. And a lot of people talk about delayed gratification. I think I saw Elon Musk describe delayed gratification as, something like choosing not to go to the party tonight so that you can be hosting the party in 5 years. But for people like our parents, this wasn't just about a party. This was like, I'm leaving behind my family, my community, my language, in the hopes that in several years, I'm going to create a better life for myself or for my kids. It's hard to imagine it was for me in my stage to be to pick up and to have to be in a situation, we complain a lot. There's a lot of things going on politically right now. In North America, at least, we're not faced with that sort of trajectory that our parents might have been faced, which is hey, if we stay, there's actual physical danger. There's a lot of economic danger today, but unless you're in places like the Ukraine and other parts of the world, you're not necessarily needing to do that sort of major sacrifice like that to say hey, there's potential real harm here if we stay where we are, and so we have to leave everything behind.
I love it. So from that background and family, which is a fantastic fire for someone that has you have to have the fire in yourself, but you choose first investment banking, which is probably the most conservative and as well quite aggressive as well, because surviving in investment banking is not an easy task, and it's really, you have to be the best of the best, but as well hyper competitive. So from that experience to become an entrepreneur, tell us how did it go?
Right. So the decision to be an investment banker, though, wasn't as conservative as you think. So in getting there, growing up when your family comes with nothing, you develop an ambition, right? And so although inside I was somewhat of an art, I like reading creatively, I like writing stories and being an artist, but I definitely had this drive, which was like, I'd like to have a good life. And in order to do that, what's the highest paying profession out there? And unfortunately, or for good or for bad, I reversed myself into like, what job pays the most? Doctor, lawyer. Oh, these banker guys have to, you use your mind. You're sort of a little bit working on your own within some guidelines, and you could get paid very handsomely. That part of that and working with entrepreneurs is what led me to wanting to become an entrepreneur. So when I was a co-founder of Hut 8 Mining, and the story behind that's very interesting. So Hut 8 is a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded Bitcoin miner. And we were the first publicly traded Bitcoin miner in the day. Today, there's probably 24. But in 2016, 2017, when the company was formed, there were 0. And the reason that came about is, as a banker, I saw that there was a need from public market investors who wanted to have exposure to Bitcoin. But you couldn't. There were no ETFs. There was no miners or anything else. And so we had to sort of come up with an idea of how do we get around the regulations and have a publicly traded vehicle that gives people exposure to Bitcoin. And the idea was, why don't we create a public miner that keeps its Bitcoin, the HODL strategy. And I did that while I was a banker. We formed the business, we raised capital. I mean, to date, Hut 8's probably raised over $1 billion under its, through its growth. But at the time, when it was an idea, we were able to raise over $100 million, and we had $1 billion of demand globally. That was back in 2017. And it was off of, a little bit more than an idea, but not much more. The way that I ended up leaving is we attracted some really notable people. So we had Mike Novogratz on the board. I don't know if you know Mike Novogratz from Galaxy Digital. I was part of the team that helped take him public. We had been doing some work in the blockchain space, and Mike came in and was, really, he was part of the not quite the founders group, but the group that came in right after the seed. He joined the board. We had another guy, Bill Ty. Bill Ty is still the chairman at Hut 8. One of the most remarkable early stage investors ever. He's from, Silicon Valley and, early stage seed investor in some of the biggest names on the planet. And we had $100 million in the bank, and we were looking for a CEO. So I was a banker. I had a good career. And the question was really, who's the CEO going to be? And I said, well, why don't I do it? And that was like on a Wednesday. I'm pretty sure on the next day, they said, yeah, you do it. I quit on Thursday. And then on Monday, I was the CEO of a company with $110 million in the bank, no employees, and like nothing. We had a logo and an idea. And that was really what got me started on my entrepreneurial journey. So I made it easy on myself, because by the time I took the leap, I had money in the bank, I had a board, a business I had helped build. It was a remarkably easy decision to make.
Well, that's an impressive story, but it actually seems easy from outside, but from inside, I'm sure that is not a simple one, because first of all, generating the money, like you said, it's a massive task that you have to have a huge amount of skill set. And that's one of the things I always try to deconstruct. I always say to my team that there's nothing by accident. And that is because you found niche markets, you were prepared for that, and you had as well the backers to back you on that. And then there was more your part. So from that one, I want to touch a bit, because you were in the epicenter of transforming the crypto trading in a more, I would say, an opportunity, like you said, for people that want to invest, but they want to invest on the safe side. And Canada has been actually leading on this side. Unfortunately, probably most of people don't know, but it's actually one of the most, probably biggest breakthroughs on Canada, was making the bridge between official crypto trading and capital markets. So tell us a bit about that, and as well your inception from investment banking to crypto and to Bitcoin and to the Metaverse.
Yeah. And so I view myself as a financial engineer, not like, I love crypto. I love Bitcoin. I'm very familiar with the process of mining and the algorithms. But my main motivation was, how can we allow people to get easier access to crypto? Like, if you have a wallet, you can imagine, for a lot of people who are used to pressing buttons and calling their financial advisor, the idea of getting exposure by, buying a piece of hardware that looks like a USB stick that you fit in your thing, and then having to put in codes or remember pass keys and all that and hide them, is daunting. And so the motivation was really to make it easy for a wider mainstream category of investors to get exposure. And I think it worked really well. And there's been, like I said, dozens of copycats since. What led me to move beyond that was, number one, COVID hit, and I think I had become tired of running a public company. And you know this as an entrepreneur, and that was really my first entrepreneur. And I'm sure you can relate to this. You know, being an entrepreneur is like really high highs, but most days you're just getting kicked in the balls, you know?
Yeah, so I completely understand what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like every day there's like, you know, dealing with people is difficult. Like, you know, dealing with outside firms, building, motivating, getting everything in place. Like as a CEO, you're really wearing so many hats. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's so true that you're just like one day you're like HR, another day you're doing this. And when you're the CEO, and like, do you ever wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I gotta do this. And like my wife will be like, what are you doing? You got up in the middle of the night and you went to work for an hour, right? It's like, I couldn't risk forgetting what popped into my head. And as an entrepreneur, you're always sort of like fighting for those highs, you know, like the validation, like, you know, in my current company, when we get that validation and something happens and you're like, yes, okay, I'm on the right track. But a lot of days it's a bit of a lonely job where you're like, am I doing the right thing? You know, was that the right decision? Was that the right thing to do? But anyways, back to the story. I was at Hut 8. I think I had sort of been suffocating myself with the work. I wanted a little bit of time off, and I let the board know I wanted to leave. And during my time off, which coincided with COVID, I started discovering staking. And staking is sort of a counterpart to mining, to crypto mining. I mean, I think you're familiar with all that, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of without using power. And I was really amazed to see that all new blockchains were being formed via staking. I mean, nobody builds a new blockchain today, even under a mining infrastructure for security. It just doesn't happen. Bitcoin, I think if you probably look at the top 20 tokens out there, Bitcoin's probably the only one that still uses mining. Everybody else uses staking. So at the time I was like, okay, this is a really cool transition and a way for me to get exposure to public market investors to things that are other than Bitcoin. And your CapEx is buying the token, because in order to stake it, you have to own it. And so I started tokens.com under the guise of bringing new interesting things to the public market that they would have difficulty getting exposure to themselves. So at the time, that was like, early days of Solana, Oasis, Polkadot, Ethereum, and a few other things. I think we were the first public company. I think we found a way to stake Shiba Inu. We were the first public company to own Shiba Inu. We actually went and bought a CryptoPunk because we found a way to earn a yield off it. And so we were the first public company to own a CryptoPunk, Shiba Inu, alongside collecting these yields from owning Ethereum and Solana and such.
Wow, that's a fantastic. I love. Well, first of all, I completely share the challenges. Well, challenge and the adventures of being a CEO. I think I love it. Although I think most of the people around me probably don't share the same passion, or at least the stress levels, like you said, perseverance sometimes. Right. But that is, I think, okay, there are people like us that are tailored for that, and you have to do. But it's amazing that you identify all the different opportunities. But I love your precision. I think, for instance, in my case, I was in the beginning of the epicenter of blockchain with actually one of the first tokens in the world. And I screw up in a lot of ways because I was not so precise. I was probably too overthinking. But it's an interesting thing as well. So I'm familiar with, of course, all the companies that you created. So from tokens.com, which was one of the first ones, to even the mining corp, to Metaverse Group.
So the Metaverse Group is an interesting story. Yeah, Metaverse Group. I'll tell you how Metaverse Group started. One of my original crypto friends said, "Have you ever looked at buying Metaverse?" And essentially, piece of Metaverse, decentralized Metaverse, is an NFT that's part of a larger puzzle, right? So, there's a scarcity value there, and it reminds me a lot of Bitcoin. So, for example, Decentraland only has, whatever it was, 45,000 parcels available. And as more people start attending and going to Decentraland, each one of those parcels becomes more and more valuable, just like real estate. And I thought, hey, this would be interesting to put into tokens.com as, again, providing this exposure to publicly traded exposure to a CryptoPunk, to Shiba Inu, to, Oasis and DOT. And so I said, well, let's do this in a way that's a little splashy. And I don't know if you remember back in 2021, this was before Facebook pivoted, but do you remember the story that somebody bought the most expensive piece of real estate, metaverse real estate in history? Well,
Yeah,
that was me.
I remember. Oh, wow.
And we didn't think it was going to be, we didn't do it for the publicity, but I remember we bought it and then Decentraland sent us a note and they're like, our servers are blowing up. Everyone wants to know who did it. Can we tell them it was you? We're like, yeah, go ahead. The next day we had CNN, CNBC, Wall Street Journal. Everybody was calling to be like, who are these nuts that spent millions of dollars to buy a piece of virtual real estate? And that's what sort of said, oh, I think there's a business here. Let's separate this out into Metaverse Group and build this as kind of a metaverse real estate company.
That's amazing that you were in the inception of all of this. Well, we were in parallel in a lot of these ways, but this was actually, like you said, that there was. I admired the way you kind of surf the trends, but actually you create actually a fantastic value because it's not easy to build the technology, to be on the top of the trends, and at the same time look at the financial engineering, like you said, that you need to have to control these things because it's very easy to car crash, especially if you are doing so much cutting edge things, and especially you're doing this with public money, with exchanges and so forth. So I want to touch that part as well. How did you leverage from building so much cutting edge parts, but as well keeping investors, exchanges, public offers, raising money, and all these different things?
So the story's always been the same. We don't go to investors and say, hey, this is a blue chip investment. We're very upfront. We're dealing with speculative investments. And when I say speculative, I mean, there's a business plan. Like when we bought the metaverse real estate, there was a business plan. Hey, as more people go and use these metaverses, we'll be able to charge higher and higher rents for people that want to build and advertise there. But we don't pretend to be blue chip. The message is always there. And as you can see, there's good highs. 2021 was an excellent year for crypto, metaverse, pretty much every asset class in the world, largely on the back of government checks being written for COVID relief. 2022 and 2023 were awful years for almost every asset class. And crypto and metaverse specifically had an awful time because they were not only just like collapse in value, but we had some very high profile scandals, FTX, Genesis, Three Arrows, there was one back to back to back. And that was a difficult time to go to investors who were upset and say, look, these are macro events. The thesis that you invested in remains true, but things don't always turn out the way you hope. And that's a tough message. And as the CEO, you are the lightning rod for negative and positive attention, right? I'm sure you get that as well. When things go right, you're the hero, but when things go wrong, you're the person everybody wants to hate.
Yeah, that's and there was effectively just looking at what happened in the last 3 years of crypto. Now, of course, it's mainstream in the White House, but various things.
Who would have never known, right?
Yeah, but you never know.
Back in 2017, I had a public company that mined Bitcoin, and I was, traveling all over the world telling people they should invest in this thing called Bitcoin when it was like $3,000. And people were scratching their heads at me and saying, like, you left a career as an investment banker in real estate to do this? Like, are you crazy? And then, today, everybody knows what Bitcoin is. And it's been the best performing asset for the last, 12 consecutive, 10 of the last 12 years. But back then, people think you're crazy.
Yeah, it's really been a roller coaster. But
you have involvement with blockchain and Web3 in your business. And you've been at it for a while. You can relate to this. You go to your family or your friends and they're like, are you sure? Are you okay? You're going to lose all your money here. And, and you got to have conviction what you're doing. Cause sometimes it's hard to sleep at night, especially when I have 4 kids. I certainly have, future obligations here. So yeah.
No, I hear you. And this, I had to just share with the audience. And I think this is interesting I remember having probably the most crazy experience of I actually helped create a bank in 2014 to 2015. I was the number 2 and I actually created the bank and I was the chief commercial officer and I was having multiple roles. But one of the things I remember 2 years afterwards, I was creating my first token. And I remember that I was told black and white in the city of London, if you tell anyone you're working with Bitcoin, you get exposed and you would actually get kicked out of. And I was looking at them. So this is meddling with yes, it's a reality.
The U.S. has a Bitcoin reserve in place,
Yes.
But here's the thing: it takes people like us who are willing to
do
put the
this
necks
thing.
on the line to advance technology and be innovative. Because if it wasn't for the crazy people like us who are like, there is a greater reward and some strange motivation as it from being beat up as a kid or whatever else to get you here, like the world doesn't advance and progress.
Yes, completely. And I think just sharing with our audience, I have one anecdote. I was privileged to meet one of the founders of NASDAQ. And of course, I got excited. I started asking questions. And it kind of killed all my glamour stuff. And he said, well, that was the Wild West. So everything that happened in crypto, like we describe it now, it happened in NASDAQ. They were actually considered the crazy guys. And actually, effectively, we had Madoff. Madoff was part of the team.
Already, that's right.
Like,
That's right.
People forget that. I think
He was the chairman of the NASDAQ for a while, right?
Yeah, I think he has some bigger role like that. So completely. So it's just to demystify all the craziness. And now NASDAQ, okay, there's nothing more sacred than that. So I think people forget there's a sense of short memory. But well, let's continue with your profile because it's amazing. I love as well your sense of sharpness, but as well understanding. So from your profile, it's been amazing because of course all these companies made the really, I would say, a big benchmark from tokens.com. It was massive at the time.
I think we had all of these companies had a moment of impactfulness. Unfortunately, like I'd say, of all the companies I've started, they've not all come through on the other side successfully, right? So I sold Metaverse Group. I shut down Hawk Labs. Hut 8 is doing well. And, now there's the Realbotix. But I think it's important for, any listeners to understand, failure is good. I say this to my kids all the time, because when you fail, it gives you the opportunity to learn, reflect. And there's a great saying out there, he who fails most wins. And I think that speaks to the fact of, sometimes you identify things and the thesis is there, but, the macro doesn't cooperate and, that doesn't ensure success.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. And I think, of course, being an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared to change and adapt with the waves and everything happening. So after this on blockchain and crypto, they went right now to robotics. And it's quite impressive what you guys are doing, actually. When I saw the PR, I immediately I didn't even research about you guys. Just, it was the PR. And then I realized where you are. Right. I was interested because I was curious about what you guys are doing. And really, because I think this is going to be the next, I would say, epicenter of humanity. So why Realbotix? And tell us about it. I think the other ones, I think you can go in history. They're in history of blockchain and tech.
So I'm the CEO and chairman of Realbotix. I'm not the founder. And I think that's important. I was interested. Look, I'm interested in all things that are cool. I might be like a child really at heart with some, a little bit of math knowledge. So I go out and pursue these things. But most people in the robotics space are trying to find ways to use robotics generally to replace physical human labor. Okay. Whether that's in an Amazon warehouse, move this box over there, or in your house, shovel my driveway, make me a coffee, vacuum my carpet. I thought that's not necessarily the exact use cases that I was thinking of for robotics. And maybe, as a kid growing up and watching Star Wars and all these things, robots were friends. Robots had more of a social value. And I started thinking about it that way. And I found this company that was making these highly realistic AI-powered robots. And so I bought it. And what makes these robots different is that they're designed for human interaction, not for physical tasks. Most people, first question is like, well, what kind of use cases would you have for these robots? And I think you've seen our robots, right? You've probably seen them pop up online. Here's an interesting,
it's very impressive. Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing. So the first time we attended a conference and the first time anybody publicly saw our robots was at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, which was in January. So that's like 8 weeks ago, the first time. And we had no idea what to expect. So we go there, we set up, we had 2 full-size robots and 2 robotic busts hooked up. By the second day, we knew there was like some crazy thing going on because our crowds were extremely large from morning to night. the CES organizers kept coming to me and basically they would yell at me that we had to do crowd control because we were blocking fire exits and our neighboring booths were complaining because there was too many people. The interview requests started coming through like Fox News, Barstool Sports, Forbes, Associated Press, and it got very out of control over those few days. Post CES, again, we didn't know how big the opportunity would be. We were told we had 4 billion media impressions around the world, 4 billion. So a media impression would be like Forbes has 3 million readers. That would be 3 Barstool Sports. So it's not 4 billion people, but media impressions. But a remarkable amount of media attention for what was relatively a brand new company that nobody had ever seen or heard of before. And it was all done organically.
It's very impressive. And as well as impressive what you guys are doing. So like you said, you are not the founder. So tell us why you choose what you do and what is your USP. What is Realbotix for someone that never heard about it? Of course, you can see the cool part, but what is the part that you are actually trying to do? Because of course, this is $1 trillion industry. I'm going to be as well in the NVIDIA event soon. And one of the things I realized is that I interview actually one of the directors of NVIDIA in this series, and they are all focused on robots. We have as well, of course, Elon Musk and Tesla. I actually interview Ida's robot in this series. Actually, this was 4 years ago. So it was a very high profile AI.
Which robot did you interview?
Ida. So Ida is a UK based artist robot that was created between Oxford by an art collector that's very high profile. And they became quite famous because one of the developers from Egypt, and they managed to put the sculpture of Haida in front of the pyramids. So she's quite nice. It's quite a different. And I as well know very well Amsterdam Robotics and Ben Gorshlin's as Sophia right as well, Sophia. But you guys are doing something in some ways massive, ambitious. So, and of course, you're not Tesla or you're not NVIDIA. So tell us a bit about the company, the goals, and for people that are interested, of course, you're a public listed company. It's interesting as well as a public listed company information.
Yeah, the media has really oversimplified our story, to be quite honest. They push us forward as, you can buy a $200,000 robotic girlfriend. It's far more salacious to talk about the companionship angle for the robots, but we've actually not really sold anything in that area. It's just it's a more fun tag. And for listeners, our robots look incredibly human, and our AI is meant to be conversational with you. It's meant to be social. I make jokes. You can take our robot as a date to a wedding or out for dinner to a restaurant. The unique thing about that is, like, yes, it could be a companion, and we can talk about that. Loneliness is an epidemic all over the world. And I've done some, research into that. And it's not just senior citizens and adolescents, but like, it's a big problem in not just the US, and it's all over the world. That could be because people are more accustomed to being behind their computers now. Not everybody lives in a big city. Some people have social trauma. Maybe they have a disability. Maybe they're on the spectrum. There's different reasons why people may have difficulty finding social interaction. And so our robots have the ability to provide people company. And our AI has a memory. It can remember who you are. It can remember your conversation yesterday. And because there's a physical manifestation to it that looks real, it can fulfill that role. And by the way, loneliness causes cancer, diabetes, strokes. Like, it's a big problem for societies that carries a far greater cost than you'd think. It's not just about someone feeling alone. There's catastrophic type, consequences to having an entire population that it's like 25% of the population globally feels, lonely. So I think we're able to address that. That's one use case. But other use cases that can use our technology is we've developed a vision system with highly realistic eyes that can recognize you. It can recognize an object that you're holding. It can recognize a situation. Hey, there's a fire behind you. Get an extinguisher and put it out. That is something we have patented. We've also patented this ability to change the face of the robots. All of our robots are built in a modular fashion. And so that, in a sense, the chassis of the robot, the skeleton is the same, but the pieces that go on top, such as the face, and we have a highly realistic synthetic skin, can look different. So you can have the same robotic platform, multiple characters. We can even replicate with permission the look of the robot to mimic you, for example. Stick your head inside a 3D laser scanner. It senses the dimensions. We can craft a mold that looks like you, put it in a robot, copy your voice, and there you go. So what are the use cases for that? Well, think about a retail store. You could have a robot at a retail store. It could keep an eye on things like theft. It can inform customers what's on sale. It can be used as a way to just bring foot traffic in. It could be a concierge at a hotel. It could be a greeter at a casino. It could be a assistant nurse at a hospital or at a seniors care facility and go room to room and just talk to the patients and relay information back to doctors and nurses. So there's a vast variety of use cases.
So from an engineer perspective, I'm going more technical, but my audience is a mix of technical and business leaders. So from the work that you're doing with robotic, and I know that you're the CEO, not probably the engineer, but I'm sure you know enough about the things. So you have customization, full body robots that are in a big scale, and like I said, have multiple different capacities to use cases that can be used. And you have the human touch. And I really completely share with you. I know that I'm actually building, and actually in my series here on my YouTube channel, I present already an interview with a digital twin of Leonardo da Vinci that I built.
Oh, nice.
And we actually build an AI LLM of him. And I interview as well Einstein. And we create as well an LLM. So it's one of the things I have an obsession. I share completely the passion with you that I believe that, of course, if you look at any science fiction, there's always a positive engagement between robots and humans. Of course, you have the opposite and negative. Yeah, you have the Matrix and the Terminators.
Yeah,
and the Terminators. But in the end of the day, you guys are trying to create a good barrier of that. So for people listening to us, and I think one of your mottos is transcending the barrier between man and machine. Of course, we have all these right now things in terms of AI, and you have as well the blockchain capacity because of data capacity. I'm sure you guys are bringing some of your knowledge and experience on that. But from the robots that you are creating, and you have already the different areas that you can take, how do you see the company going, and especially the customization, the interchangeable, but as well the roadmap to bring robots mainstream in a non-dystopian way? That's the question. First,
yeah. If you're building a robot for a warehouse, who cares what it looks like? Who cares if it can make a facial expression or not? Our robots have, 12 different facial expressions. I face a problem as a CEO of this robot company that none of the other robot company CEOs have to face, which is, what clothing does your robot wear when you take it to a conference? We got some criticism at CES because people didn't like the manicure on one of the robots. Funny problems to have. But the plan is this. Number one, we're not opening a bread store on the corner or a computer store where you can really analyze your end market. We're pioneering something new here. There's not many companies in the world that are selling full-size humanoid AI-powered robots. The use cases are developing, and I say it's sort of a little bit like the early days of the internet or even computing, where like 30 years ago, nobody, I don't think Steve Jobs or anybody envisioned where computers and the internet would be used today, or even early days of computing, nobody even imagined really the internet. What we want to do is get the price of the robots low enough that they can be used primarily in enterprise solutions. So I would like to see our robots at theme parks, museums, retail stores, hotels, and casinos. That's a massive market. Our robots, another key feature of our robots is that they're open source. And what I mean by that is you can run our AI, our LLM on the robot, but hey, guess what? We can run ChatGPT, Llama, Gemini, DeepSeek, or any of the proprietary AIs that are out there that a company might have. So we're talking to one of the largest electronic companies in the world right now that has their own AI. They're not interested in having a social robot per se. They want a robot that can talk and describe all of their products. And they want to take that robot to various conventions and use it as a way to elevate their brand. So somebody comes out, tell me about your toaster. Wow, this is the brand new version of the toaster, and here's why it's so great. You can't do that with some of these other robots because they're not programmed to look friendly. They look intimidating to me. Like they look like robots that, might go bananas and hurt someone. Our robots have a friendly look. There's a lot of artistry in them. I think you need that in order for robots to be mainstream and in order to have a better human connection. And that's where we're sort of carving out our niche. Now, what other areas? There was a report that came out recently that states that the entertainment robot market is going to be 115 billion by 2029. That's 4 years away. 115 billion just for entertainment robots. So what that might be is, we have sold some robots to theme parks or for promotional activities. So imagine you go to the casino. Hi, the robot welcomes you. Can I help you with anything? Sure. Where's the bathroom? Where can I get a burger? Where are the slot machines? And the robot can guide you. Well, if you're choosing which casino to go to, you might go to the one that has robots roaming around to interact with versus the other. So we can use it as a way of attracting foot traffic, promoting a product. There's a lot of use cases like that. And that's where I see the direction of the company going. And of course, there's going to be people who are lonely. We were talking to somebody related to the military. And this was interesting because they said, I was like, military, our robots can't hurt anybody. They're not meant for that. They're like, no, you don't understand. We don't want your robots for military use in that way. They said, we have a lot of lonely people stationed all over the world. Maybe the robots have a use case for keeping people company. Similar to, Star Wars, Luke Skywalker had R2-D2 and C-3PO when he was flying. Like, people need companionship. And with the convergence today of AI and hardware, this is the right time to do it. But I don't think you can do it with some of these, walking toaster robots that are out there. You need robots that look like ours.
No, I subscribe with that, and it's a key element. And you mentioned a very good point that I've been addressing in this podcast series, is that there's effectively, for instance, in terms of people with disabilities, there's 1.7, I think, billion people with disabilities. And then if you put people over 60, 70 years old, they have other kind of disabilities. There might be agility, might be vision, might be other things. And effectively, I work with actually some interactions with the Paralympics. And it's interesting that one of the people that are some other people I spoke, one of the most disruptive things they told me was that the major issues with people with disabilities is actually precisely with loneliness. And for instance, in Japan, there was as well a study that said that they're more eager to engage with a robot than actually with another human, which is another.
Yeah. So I'll give you an interesting story. We just recently sold a robot last month to a family that has an autistic son, okay? Not a child. He's an adult son who's autistic and interacts better with AI and robotics than with humans. And we've actually found that before. That would not be the first time we've sold robots for that use case. And so we sold them a full-size robot that this person can use for companionship. So I think that's a real viable case study going forward.
So I want to touch because, like you said, your robots are very human-alike and very friendly. So how do you make the bridge between building all the part of building the models, and I saw as well that they're customizable, and the packaging, the customization that you have for clients? So you're doing this more on a one-to-one basis. You want to scale on the market. It's a bit of the journey that you have, because that's in your website, but I would like to hear from you.
Yeah, we have 3 models available. So the first model is just the bust. There's 3 faces that are available for the bust. So we have a Hank, an Aria, and a Melody. And you can choose one of those, and those start at $10,000, and you can plug ChatGPT or Gemini into that. If you wanted to customize the face, we would charge another $20,000 to do that. So if you say, I want the bust, but I want it to look like my grandmother or my late father or Michael Jackson, we can do that, but there's an additional cost there to do that. The second model we have, and this is this is also super unique. I think the things we're doing are really different than what all other robot makers are doing. So the second model we have, we call it the M robot, which is the modular robot. And the modular robot is essentially like Lego. It's a robot that can be put together, full-size robot that kind of connects almost like Lego. And the reason we built that is because we were getting so many inquiries of, can you bring the robot here? Can you get it to New York? Can you get it to Las Vegas? Can you move it around? We said, it's incredibly logistically challenging to move like a 150-pound full-size, like, what do you put it in a coffin and ship it? So we designed a robot that can be pulled apart and put into a suitcase and checked in with your bags at the airport, so you can just fly around with it. And so that's our M robot. That's our modular robot. It does not move. So it doesn't have the ability to like move around a room, but it has mobility. Like it has full legs. It's on a platform, and it is fully robotic from the torso up. So it can make 20 different hand gestures, fist bump, peace sign, wave, flick of the hair. It just can't move around. And of course, we put about 16 servos in the face, which allow it to make, happy, sad, surprised, angry. We also have a technology that's proprietary to us, which is the lip syncing of the mouth and the lips to what the robot is saying. And that's actually incredibly difficult to do because you don't want the robot mouth just looking like a clapper. You want the mouth to articulate as best as possible what the robot is saying. And that requires a lot of little sort of micromotors in and around the face in order to say words properly. So, I guess part of that is when you're buying that robot, that modular robot, the heads comes off, you detach it, you put it in a suitcase, you can travel around. That robot starts at $135,000. The last robot, and again, another $20,000 if you want to customize the face. The last robot we sell is the full-bodied model. Again, it's the same 3 faces. So the molds for the regular faces are already precast. It doesn't cost us additional, we just put in the silicone, face comes out, we put it on the robotic head. The chassis of the robot is always the same. That robot that is on a wheeled platform that can move around, it's not detachable, starts at $175,000. And again, the key upgrade there is a customizable face that can be added on for $20,000. And those are the 3 robot models we sell. So when you talk about scaling, we provide a certain level of customization, but the level of customization we're offering is a little bit like buying a car. Like you can refine the appearance somewhat, what color, sunroof, leather seats, cloth seats. It's a little similar with us. The inside platform, the chassis of the robot always remains the same, which allows us to scale. And it's just the physical features that you can modify at a price or choose the existing off-the-shelf model that we have.
No, it's really impressive. We'll share images with our audience.
Yeah, let us send you some images. We have lots. And I can talk, you talk about the engineering. I can talk about that.
So if you have time, I want to, please go ahead. I have still a couple of questions.
So we manufacture everything in the US. We have a proprietary silicone skin technology, synthetic skin technology that's highly realistic. We've even been approached by medical professionals to see if it can be used as a skin substitution for burn victims. So that's one piece of it that adds to the realism. On the vision system, we leverage the NVIDIA Orin platform. So we put that in, and that helps us to operate the vision system, which can recognize people, objects, and situations. For the motors, so these are the servos, the things that basically move the elbows or even, make the robot smile or frown. We order those from an American company called Dynamixel. So we have a contract with them that allows us to sort of buy at scale these micromotors because there are, probably a couple hundred motors that go into each robot, little micromotors that help make the movement. So when it waves, our robots actually, we put motors in the fingers so they can actually do this. Like wherever you have a joint, they would have a motor that allows them to do whatever a human hand can do. For some of the machining, we use Wiggle systems. And then for their cloud, we use AWS. And so that sort of, I think, gives you a general perspective. Everything else, we engineer and manufacture ourselves, and we do it in Las Vegas.
No, that's impressive. And just if you have a bit time for 2-3 more questions. So one of the things that I prepared for the interview, so you have from an IP and trade, you touched this, but I'm just going through some of the features that I think interesting. So you have a modular interchangeable face, which has a pattern, a magnetically adjustable doll head, and the robotic vision eyeball. And as well, in terms of IP and trades, you mentioned the skin, but you have as well modular robotic body and the robotic control hub, and as well robotic mouth and lip sync. So from these parts, and of course this is what I think it's public. I'm sure there's much more, but from the way you want to build the company, because of course there's a lot of I would say if I look at robotics now, and I've been actually working on interviewing the likes of Siemens and IBMs and a lot of different companies, and IBM as well, and as well especially for instance NVIDIA is probably the one that is investing more on this on a macro scale, especially in the software and as well all the GPUs. So how do you see the robotic industry, especially picking with what you guys are doing with Realbotix, and as well the layers, because you want to scale a quality control for instance. And I want to probably make a parallel that I think makes this more scientific, but it's sometimes more science fiction cool. Right? So if you look at Star Wars, which I'm a huge fan, or even Star Trek, depends on who you like. I like both.
In our age group, everyone's a huge fan, right? That's us.
Cool.
No, that is our childhood. Lining up at the movie theater. The new generation doesn't know what that's about.
Yes. But for instance, if you look at Mandalorian, and Mandalorian is quite interesting because the series has a lot of robotics from Gru is not robotics, but if you see a lot of the engineering part, and I'm going to use science fiction to go to reality because in the end of the day, science fiction emulates reality. But the robots normally have different kind of, as well, like what I just described, IP and trade secrets or different parts. And then you can actually combine and create your own robot, like what you said, CPR, and you have even in Star Wars, the way they take the head and so forth. So you see us going, and I'm going to make the question a bit complex, but then it goes simple. And I don't know if you saw the film The Creator.
No.
That the film is amazing. It's actually the filmmaker that did as well as Star Wars film. But The Creator portrays a 2070 where we have very advanced robots and we have like two parts of humanity. I'm not going through the script, but I think it's interesting for the question I want to ask you, is that there's a vision that is, in one end, part of the world adopts a positive relationship with robots and AI. Another part of the world is against that and decides to create a war against robots. Without going in details, of course, the part of the world exactly they do what you just described. They live with robots, they're companions, and they become friends, and they become as well human, kind of semi-conscious. And then, of course, there's some robots that become to a neo level of a kind of super intelligence consciousness. So, and that is, of course, all the myths of science fiction end up actually going to this, is that we have a new iteration of androids of humans that come out of this work. So as someone that is building the engineer and the technical part, and as well, you mentioned the companionship, and it's a big business because just the companionship, I'm sure if you go and create a robot for patients and a robot for hospitals, it will be massive because people need it. And a robot can be working.
We sell that today. So
exactly. So I want to just see how do you do the bridge between this kind of ideological or philosophical elements, then the engineering part, and as well bringing this to market, because these three things are components that you cannot separate. And there's about keeping the cutting edge to compete because, well, there's still not a massive competition, but there's a lot of people building robots.
There are a lot of people building robots. Nobody's building robots like ours that I'm aware of. It's a deep philosophical question, and I don't know that I'm deep enough to get into the philosophy around it. Like I just see a really cool opportunity. I think the day of, there are already robots existing today. If you go to Boston Dynamics and places that can be used for military purposes, right? Like everything, the internet, social media, there's always going to be nefarious people that are going to look to use it to take advantage of people. Like, I don't know that robotics technology is there yet to do that outside of specific military purposes. Like you can make a case like, is a drone a specialized type of robot? I think we are still many years from having to grapple with that problem in reality. And I don't know that it will be a problem beyond something that we evolve into. Like, I'm not one of those people that thinks that AI is going to take over the planet and we're going to be living in Blade Runner or Terminator type land. I think like every other technology mankind has developed, we will find ways to keep it under control.
So you are positive on this, and of course, otherwise you would not be looking at this. And I am as well. I'm just trying to. I think it's important to put this, and there's a lot of education needs to be done because, of course, we're talking about AI, AGI, and all these different things. And the other day, AGI comes into robotic form in a lot of ways, or at least a droid, like you said, Blade Runner kind of scenarios. But I don't want to go too much on the philosophical. I think that's, of course, is an area that I'm very interested in. I actually interviewed Nick Bostrom, that is probably the biggest authority in AI and philosophy in the world. But just coming back to your company. So in terms of the journey, you guys are really scaling and taking it forward. What are I'd say for people that are interested potential to invest or to buy robots with you guys, what would be of course you pitch it very well as the CEO and you have a fantastic investor presentation, everything is in your website, but about in terms of the way you take forward this, what's your vision and a bit of your vision, let's say for a couple of years from now?
Yeah, so we're at an inflection point as a company. figuring out how to scale. I am very set on creating a very strong customer experience. So we could be selling more robots today than we are if we were to push in the marketing. However, I prefer for us to start at a smaller scale and sell a few robots with select clients in order to perfect that customer service. So for example, when you buy a robot, when the face gets poured, I want you to receive an email. I want you to get almost a birth certificate for your robot when you buy it. There needs to be sort of this ongoing software updating the hardware mechanism to it. And although we're selling robots today, I really want to perfect that before we scale. And so where we are today is, look, if somebody was looking to get exposure to this business, there's not a lot of pure play publicly traded companies that make hardware and software for humanoid robots. And by far we're unique. Like I think CES validated that we were in the robot section at CES. We had a bigger crowd than everybody else. So we are working on something unique here. And I think for people who are interested, we're publicly traded, so our information is there. We're at the early stages. And the challenge for management right now is how do we take this phenomenal technology that we have and translate it into something mainstream? And in order for it to become mainstream, we need to perfect that last yard to interacting with customers.
Yeah, I think it's very wise, because I think if you build the foundations and you take it forward, you can actually take it forward. So you can take actually a much bigger market afterwards. One other question that I have, and I want to be conscious of your time, let me know when you have the limit part, but as someone that brought the blockchain, actually I interview a company here that makes dog robots. I've been actually having my part of robotic companies. And one of the things they did was that they used kind of a token and the blockchain certification to create authority on the data and actually to protect that the data could be changed. Are you bringing any of that to your robots, and do you have all the experience with kind of blockchain technology and AI with all your experience?
We're not. I love blockchain technology. I think the connection and convergence between AI and blockchain is stronger than between blockchain and robotics, unless you're just talking about inventory systems. But I believe attaching a token or an NFT or something to the robots is going to complicate the story for people. I don't want to trivialize what we're doing by giving away an NFT with every robot. And unfortunately, although NFT technology is so amazing, and it's too bad that it got trivialized by something that was kind of hot and speculative, and that now that technology has been in a way like repressed because of the way it was unrolled. Like an NFT is really like a blockchain for one item. And if you think about it, to me, like, okay, you could put all the contents of your house on it. Like, you could put would you remember Soul NFTs? They were called either S. Yeah. So imagine like you go to a community college, university, whatever it is, or even a job, and you can pull up an NFT. So you have a virtual resume that says, yes, this guy attended Harvard or Ryerson or whatever it is. And you have that degree, and the person can look and be like, okay, that's validation that this person actually did this. Like, what a great use case. What about insurance companies? Like, hey, I uploaded all the major items in my house. There was a fire. I can now verify that I own these things that are now gone. Think about the use cases in art. And I really think we effed things up with the NFTs, not because I didn't love CryptoPunks and Bored Apes and the rest of the stuff, but because that took center stage over the actual underlying technology. And I think that really set things back.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, and as well, of course, I was talking here more from the smart contract part of the technology, but I understand.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not looking to do that because I believe that can complicate things. I don't want to trivialize it to be, we're already dealing with a situation with our robots where some people think they're just a novelty. I think there's a greater use case, and I don't want that association with blockchain or things that can be like, oh, this is just, a physical Bored Ape or CryptoPunk, and it'll be, worthless in 2 years. That's it.
No, I completely understand. Yeah. So I think for finalizing, I think just on the stock part of the project, if you want to highlight for investors, of course, you are a public trade company, a bit of the project, a bit of the investment part, of course, disclosure. This is non-investment I would say
Right.
advice, but I just want to highlight as well what you guys are doing.
Yeah, look, we have in my opinion, non-investment advice, but an undervalued company. Private companies in the robotics space are commanding multi-billion-dollar valuations. I think when those companies start going public, the valuation gap between us and them will be apparent because our valuation is currently under $50 million. That's for a company with incredible technology that has attended, a few weeks ago, one conference and got more media attention than anybody else. So I would encourage audience members, go to our website. Our investor website is realbotix.ai. Our customer website is realbotix.com. We are constantly building and growing and at the early stages of unrolling our solution to the world.
No, fantastic. Well, I think with this, we'll wrap up. I think it's really been fantastic. First of all, congratulations for all the work and all your achievements. I'm very excited about as well what you guys are doing. I'm personally very interested, and there's a couple of things I will follow up with you. But I think for our audience, this is a great opportunity. And as well, I think what I like about your narrative and what you guys are doing in Realbotix is that there's a very focused approach towards building a very simple product that has massive possibilities. It's not simple, but simple in the narrative, and that can actually bring definitely something, like you said, non-trivial, but as well very straightforward. Because I think the challenge sometimes is we overcomplicate, and especially in robotics, there's so much narratives that have to be demystified. Congratulations, most success, and I hope that we can actually do other things together on this. Thank you.